someone comes in and you're kind of working with them on a weight loss program, and maybe you weigh them every time they come in and they've gained 4 pounds. So you be like, it's okay. Like, we're going to do this. Like, that's not transparent. Transparent is like, something's not going on. Like, what's not working right now? Let's figure this out. And maybe we'll talk, but one of my big things is what and hows. So you never ask why. Why is this not working?
Right.
Now I'm accusing you.
Right, exactly.
And now I'm trying to figure out your motives and your all this, like, but what is not working right now? How can we improve this? What and how, never why.
We are here because we know the outcomes in our lives are within our control. That taking absolute ownership of how we eat, sleep, train, think, and connect with each other is how we'll optimize our health and happiness. That chasing excellence is how we grab hold of what is possible. Our mission is to live on the run, always chasing, never stopping. Hello.
Patrick, what's up?
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Today we are going to talk about a big subject, and I think it's one that people are really going to like. And it's going to be coaching strategies, or sort of what you've come to learn about coaching, right? So I think this is going to be a little bit of a long one, but hopefully one that people get a lot out of. Before we dive into it, a big thanks to our sponsor, Noble. We're going to hear from them later about how they are chasing excellence. But for now, this idea of coaching strategy, and it's one that's sort of like, it was an idea that you had, and as soon as you did, I was like, yes, let's definitely dive into that. And as we've talked about it a little bit in terms of like, well, what is this conversation actually about? It seems that there are sort of two ends or two sort of roads that we can go down, and I think hopefully we can get down both of them today. The first one is maybe, for lack of a better term, sort of a philosophical conversation about coaching, what it looks like, how you've come to think about it. And then the other one is the tactical conversation about how do you, and we'll use your experience in the gym primarily, but I think there's going to be a lot of carryover for coaches in various sports or whomever would consider themselves a coach. But we'll use the tactics of what you've learned about how to get the most out of athletes in the gym. So I think those will be the two sort of goalposts that we're going to go between. But let's start with the philosophical one. What have you seen? What are the really big high level things that you've learned about what makes a good coach a good coach? Where do you even begin to think about where I am today and where I want to be in a year or 5 years or 10 years? Like what's like step one?
Okay. I think for probably step one is defining what a coach is. And to me, a coach is somebody whose primary objective is to get someone else better. So that falls into a lot of different, all of a sudden, a lot of things come into the coaching realm, like parents and managers. Yeah. Those are all coaches. So it's not just like athletics. It's if you're trying to help someone read better or study for SATs, you're a coach. If you're trying to get a child to develop to their full potential, you're a coach. If you're a manager in an organization trying to bring up a salesperson or a young aspiring marketing person, you're a coach. So coach is a broad term that we kind of throw out purposefully because I think everyone in a lot of different positions are coaches. A coach is not someone that just because you're in a leadership position or it says coach on the back of your shirt or anything else. So the first thing we have to kind of identify is what are some like defining characteristics of different levels of coaching. And this is kind of like John Maxwell X, which we might have talked about before. Yeah. But like the beginning to me is the lowest level of a coach is a person that thinks that they're in charge of others and their authority relies in their position. If people only have buy-in, if people are only listening to you because you are their manager, you are their parent, or you are their quote unquote coach, you have no real coaching. They're forced to do it. And these coaches, leaders, lead in fear. And it's everything that they give is second guessed by the receiving party. Mm-hmm.
When you say lead in fear, do you mean that they lead?
They're afraid that.
So they're in fear.
They're
it's not
afraid
that the person they're coaching is scared of them and whatever.
What I mean by that is the person that is giving the coaching is in fear. Gotcha. They're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of the person they're coaching being better than them. So we see this in our world in CrossFit. Yeah. Coaches that are like their worst fear is that their athletes jump them on the leaderboard. That's the exact, by definition, if that's the way you look at it, you're a level one coach. Mm-hmm. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a level 1 coach as long as you recognize you're a level 1 coach. If you don't recognize you're a level 1 coach, you can't grow beyond that, and you will always be stuck there. And everyone you're coaching is going to second guess everything you're telling them. They're not going to absorb it. They're not going to, it's not nothing that you, none of the pointers, none of the tips, none of the tactics, none of the strategies that you give them are going to manifest themselves in the athlete. It's all going to be, they're not going to buy in. And that's what we're trying to do, is build this trust and this buy-in. So
before you go in, just that idea of like, as long as you know that that's where you are, you can grow. Is there a way to like, is there something that somebody can say, how, am I that or am I not that?
Yeah.
Or is it just like you just know it or you don't know?
It's not like written on your resume.
Right.
It's not one of those things, but it's an awareness level. Yeah. It's, and the kind of awareness is like, have you moved to step number 2? Mm-hmm. And step number 2 is based off of relationships. And that's why, and it doesn't mean you need to like go out and have coffee with these people. It doesn't mean you need to be invited to their birthday party. What it means is you have to have a level of trust established between the coach and the athlete, to where the athlete believes, and this is the definition of level 2, the athlete believes that the coach has their best interest at heart. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, now all of a sudden when we give feedback, they'll buy into it. They'll believe it. They understand that they're giving me this only because they want me to be better. And that's a really kind of low barrier for a coach. But that's a big one. It's a big hurdle for a lot of first-time coaches to get past that first one. Get over the fact that like your athletes should be better than you. Like no coach in the NBA could beat anyone one-on-one. Right. The coach is not supposed to be the athlete. So everyone in our sports should kind of like really quickly like paradigm shift, get over that fact, be a coach, not an athlete. Mm-hmm. Then from there, what do you really, really want? What do you really, really feel? When that athlete does better than you in a workout, do you really feel good about it? Or is there kind of like, and that's your litmus test for, are you level 2? Yep. Now, what we want to do is get past level 2 and get to this bigger thing, which is level 3, which is that you've created results for people. And it's great to have relationships and be this fun guy and real connecting with people and a people person and all that. But more so what we need to do is I shouldn't say more so, but on top of that, once you get people to buy in and trust you, you got to have some ability to deliver. And that is results. Have you gotten people sub 3-minute Frans? Have you gotten people to lose 100 pounds? Have you gotten people to run marathons? Have you gotten people to regionals in the games? Have you gotten, whatever it might be, the results, right? And if you do that, then the next person that walks in can really quickly look around and see like, oh, this person delivers results. Maybe they know what they're talking about. There's a lot of tactics that people put in place to make this happen. You see it in Division I colleges. They put up all their first round draft picks. They put up the Heisman Trophy winners. They display the trophies. So when people come into their program, they really quickly can see this place produces results. I should trust what they're saying. Mm-hmm. It's not just done. Yep. What we really want to do though is build results for that individual. And that's when we become kind of the higher level of coaching. When you deliver results, when they trust you and you deliver results for that person, let's say you get them a sub 3-minute Fran. Let's say you get them to put 10 more pull-ups on their unbroken pull-ups. You get them to run a marathon in under 3 hours. You get them to lose 100 pounds. You get them off diabetes medication. All of a sudden, when you give them the next piece of advice, the likelihood that they buy in goes way. They're not going to be second guessing it. Right. If I coach you for 5-6 months a year and I deliver incredible results for you, and all of a sudden I have this little pointer for you on your next thing, the deadlift, you're not like, right. Does he think he's better than me? You're like, he wants me to be better. Right. So that's kind of the idea behind this, is first and foremost in terms of coaching, is understanding that we have to build kind of the repertoire, build the hierarchy within ourselves of where we stand. And it goes, yeah, you're the coach. Great, good for you. You got hired as a coach. Doesn't count for much. Then, okay, let people to trust you and buy into you. Can you deliver results for other people? Once you do that, I think you deliver results for that individual. Once you do that for a lot of people, now all of a sudden the cycle starts to go.
Staying in the gym for a minute, in a CrossFit gym, because it's maybe a little bit different than everywhere else, but maybe not. How do you see that playing out for you? It's one thing as the owner of the gym, as the person responsible for building the gym, for sort of the face of the gym, and not you specifically, but you as an owner of a CrossFit gym.
Yep.
But now you have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 other coaches working underneath you.
Yep.
Does anything change for them that was different for a person in your position? In other words, when I walk into a new gym, I'm seeing I'm seeing the landscape of what the gym has been able to accomplish. So that's the gym is in some level or in some way level 3. But how does the individual coach who's only maybe coaching 4 classes a day, 3 classes a day, go up that ladder when they don't have access, when they're not the one responsible for sort of the global?
Okay. Yeah. So 2 points to that. One is you're on different levels with everybody.
Yep.
So you're not literally like, I'm a level 3 leader, I'm a level 4 leader. I might be a level 4 with people I've been working with for 2 years. New person walks in the gym, I'm a level 1.
Yeah.
And I have to climb the ladder with that individual. So, but that doesn't answer your question. Your question is, how does that athlete, my gut reaction to that is there's a couple things you can do. We build in tactics into our gym management to ensure that we have an opportunity to climb the ladder. I'll talk about those in a second.
Yep.
But the bigger one is if the coach is constantly worried about, that's kind of the definition of a level 1.
Mm-hmm.
But guy goes, yeah, but I'm not the gym owner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I only coach 4 classes a day. Yeah, but you're a level 1 leader. That's kind of what the level 1 leader talks about. That's what they're looking at. Instead of like, I'm in a position where I could really influence and impact these people's lives. Mm-hmm. My job is to make these people better. Now, what's the best way I can do that? First thing I can do is build trust. Because if I don't build trust, I can't coach them. Everything I say is going to be met with, here's an example, right, of the kind of these levels of leadership. You are, you're flying in a plane and you sit down and you're wearing your Rogue t-shirt. So you sit down and the guy goes, oh, Rogue, you a CrossFitter? You go, yeah, I'm a CrossFitter. He goes, you know what? I'm actually a level 4 CrossFit coach. You're like, oh, that's cool. Great. Good for you. He goes, let me tell you something. I got this product that'll take 1 minute off your Fran time tomorrow. What are you thinking?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. So, but why not? He's a level 4 CrossFit coach.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a product that will take a minute off your Fran time. The reason is because he's a positional leader. Yeah. He hasn't built any trust with you. Right. So it's all snake oil and salesman. And you're like, I don't believe you. That's where a lot of our coaches live in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. They never get themselves out of that. Now imagine that instead of it being that guy on the airplane, the total stranger that's a level 4, it's just your brother. You call up your brother that like lives in, 5 states away. You're like, hey, I've been started CrossFit. He's like, awesome, man. I've been doing it for like, 6 months. I got my level 1, not level 4. Mm-hmm. And hey, listen to this. I came across this product that will take 1 minute off your Fran time tomorrow. What are you thinking?
Yeah, send me the link.
Okay, okay, cool. Like that's because you trust your brother.
Yep.
Now, let's say that he's like, hey, by the way, I've done it with my affiliate and I have an affiliate of 100 people, 98 of them the next day took a minute off their Fran time. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Like, okay, because he delivered results for other people. Yep. So you try it. And it takes a minute off your Fran time. Now what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm telling everybody else.
Yeah. And he goes, by the way, I have a thing for Diane. And what are you thinking?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're like, you're in because that's the way the hierarchy goes.
Yep.
So I don't even remember what your question was, but essentially I do.
The individual coach.
The individual coach, what we do is we put some practices in place to help expedite that process. Mm-hmm. Because that process may take for a really good coach and a really humble and coachable athlete, that may take 3 minutes to get from level 1 to level 2. And maybe by the end of the class, you're level 3 or 4, right? You already deliver results for someone. Other coaches and other athletes, and it depends on a lot of factors, it may take 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 years. You may never get there, right? So what we do is we put some things in place that will help push it along.
Right.
It's one of those things is our same coaches the same class every single day. So you build a relationship. Now I know what people talk about. It's like, yeah, but we like for our coaches to meet everyone in the gym. Great. Imagine if the Patriots had a different coach every 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Like how good would the Patriots be? But they get to meet so many people on the staff. Like, yeah. And they never become good because they never get to be really deep. The saying is, I'd rather know everything about my wife. I'm sorry, I'd rather know only a few. I'm butchering this. I'd rather know just a few things about my wife than everything about marriage. Mm-hmm. It's not about knowing this big, massive thing. It's about knowing a lot about the individual. Yeah. So that's one of the things we do, is make sure that the coach can build a relationship over a long period of time with the same athletes. We call it 12 classes strong. We run 12 classes at our gym. I always coach the 8:30. That's my class. That's my team. I'm going to make that team as strong as I can. We have another coach that coaches the 9:30 and the 11:30 and the 12:30 and so on. And their responsibility is to make that class as strong as they can. Now, if we're in shift work, like there's a reason that at hospitals and first responders, they have 24-hour shifts, because if you do that, you own it. If you're only there for a short period of time, you're always waiting, because you know someone's going to take it and relieve you. So you don't really buy in and build the relationships. The longer the shift, ours is forever, hopefully, the more relationships you can build. The next one is we systemize. We try to create these emotional bank account deposits. I've talked about that before, but make people feel good. And we systemize in our class. One of the easiest ones is hearing people's names. Everyone in our class every member in our class hears their name at least 3 times. When they walk in, when they walk out, and at least once during the class. Now, hopefully it's way, way, way more than that, but they should at least hear it 3 times. What that means is 3 times I identified you as an individual. I said your name. I recognize you. There's this African saying when people meet in these tribes, which is not hello, not how are you. In their language, it is I see you. Being seen is one of the most important human things that you can have. So what we want to do is say someone's name, and by saying that, it's I see you, Patrick, not what's up, big guy, or like, okay, class. That's not I see you. So you got to make people feel like you have their business at heart. So there's probably a handful. We could probably do another podcast on the tactics there.
All of this stuff, and you sort of mentioned it in that answer, but I think it's worth teasing out and talking about specifically, but is the idea of trust. And the idea of building trust in pursuit of all those things you talked about. So you just gave some tactics, but maybe let's take a step back a little bit and talk to me about why trust is so important and how sort of conceptually you can start to think about how to build more trust.
So trust is the foundation of every relationship. I don't care if it's spouse to spouse or teacher to student or employee you get it. Trust is the foundation of all relationships. Trust equals love.
Including it's the same business to customer.
Yeah, I love that, Patrick. Well done. Yes. Phenomenal. It is the foundation. It is the goal of every relationship you have, is to enhance and solidify trust. Now, a few ways that we can go about doing that. The first one is leading by example, right? And showing that what you talk about is what you act the way you talk. It brings consistency. The fastest way to break trust is inconsistencies. I tell you one thing, but I do another. Hey, Patrick, want to work out at the 5:30 a.m. class with me tomorrow? I'm going to get up early. Will you come and do that with me? And I don't show up. What happens? I don't know if I can trust Ben. Now, you're not saying that out loud, but subconsciously, that's what's going through your mind. If I do that enough times, you're not going to buy into me enough. Consistency in terms of like when we have a conversation, am I engaged? Am I looking at you? Do I have body language? Like everything. Is there this are we building trust right now or not? So consistency and leading by examples are certainly the biggest one, the big ones. But I think even more so is probably, and this is like different coaches have different, to me, humility and transparency. So this is, the humility aspect is it should be about them. So when you listen to like some high level coaches, one of the biggest things is the coach should never become bigger than the team. And when the coach does become bigger than the team, that's when I kind of lose interest and I stop following that coach.
Interesting.
Because it should always be about the team and deflect everything. So, the other way to say that is like, when things are going bad, you take it on you. That's humility. It's my fault we're losing. It's my fault you're not seeing results. It's my fault that you were late to work because you didn't understand the standards that we had in place. It's my fault. You take on ownership of everything that's not going well. And when things are going well, it's you and we, and it's all because of them. It's not because of anything we're doing.
So give credit, take blame.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it is. If you do that with this level of transparency behind everything. So no hidden motives, no room for rumors, no room for second guessing. Everything is out there in the wide open. And this is where it comes into like embracing harsh realities. Like, hey guys, we are not where we're supposed to be. Like, someone comes in and you're kind of working with them on a weight loss program, and maybe you weigh them every time they come in and they've gained 4 pounds. So you be like, it's okay. Like, we're going to do this. Like, that's not transparent. Transparent is like, something's not going on. Like, what's not working right now? Let's figure this out. And maybe we'll talk, but one of my big things is, what and hows. So you never ask why. Why is this not working?
Right.
Now I'm accusing you.
Right, exactly.
And now I'm trying to figure out your motives and your all this, like, but what? What is not working right now? How can we improve this? What and how, never why. And if you do that with the levels of transparency of, this is my motives, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, this is my shortcomings as a coach. I don't know that. I don't understand that. Let's try and figure that out together. Like, being aware of your own strengths and weaknesses, being like very self-analytical, helps the whole level of raising you up as a coach.
And so much of what you're talking about there, especially the accountability part, is about leadership, right? It's about building a culture that exemplifies all those things that you just talked about. And we sort of mentioned, back to my earlier question about the individual coach within a system where they're not the sort of the head coach or whatever, right? So how do you build a team? How do you work to be the kind of leader who builds the type of team who individually can sort of climb that ladder of the degrees of coaching?
Okay, I think that there's 3 components to that, and just, we'll hit on these individually. But the first one is clarity of vision. Like, what is it that we're trying to create here? Like, what is the end product? What is this thing? So if you're working with an athlete, it's like, okay, this is what this is going to look like at the finished product, right? If I'm creating an organization, this is where we're going. There's a lot of buy-in. There's a lot of, that's a huge component of leadership. Clarity of vision. Like, this is where the bus is going, guys. Yep. Like, are you on board? And when they know where the bus is going, it's supposed to, like, do they just think we're going around in a circle?
Or do they think one person thinks we're going in one way and
right,
one person's going in
that's
another?
even worse, right?
Yeah.
So a great analogy there is exactly, imagine like the two of us are going to go into business and we are both like go-getters, highly motivated, super hardworking, very skilled, and like we're going to do this thing. But we're going to open up a gym together, right? And your vision is to open up 16 locations in 3 states over the next 5 years. Yep. My vision is one gym, super high level, concierge level, marble countertops, valet parking. You get your nails done there, towel service and dry cleaning, right? Yep. Neither one of those is wrong.
Right.
But no matter how motivated we are and driven, we're not going to go anywhere. Yeah. That's not
even
leadership.
Even if everything else is lined up.
Even if we have the funding, we have the drive, we're not going to achieve much. Yep. And if we do achieve it, it's going to take so much more work than it would otherwise. Every single decision is going to be a massive hurdle that we have to come over. The next piece to it is accountability. And I think that this is, for new coaches, this is probably the hardest one. The role of the coach is to explain and create and uphold standards. Draw lines in the sand and say, this is what we tolerate and this is what we don't. But it's not really what you talk about, it's what you tolerate. So people have standards all over the place. Like, we stand for integrity and we stand for honesty and we stand for hardworking and we pursue excellence and attention to details. But when it comes to calling out and attention to detail, they're like, well, I don't want to overcoach and it's okay. And I want to feel like a burden. I want to be a bad guy. And it's that slippery slope between building a relationship and being a leader. This is what you have to do. But you have to create the relationship first, because if you come in here and all of a sudden you're
drawing all these lines in the sand.
Yeah, exactly. Then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, dude, like who does this guy think he is?
Right.
But if you establish that I have your best interest at heart and they believe that, then what we can do is uphold standards. And upholding a standard of excellence is the most, I believe, after building trust and relationship, is probably the most important part of coaching. if someone is not meeting expectations, the goal is you have to bring it up. You have to call it out. Don't let it slide. That is the difference between supreme excellence, mediocrity, and total complacency. The third one there is establishing a culture. And to me, that is what we've talked about on this podcast before, but it's knowing what your values are, what your priorities are, what your principles are, what you stand for, and again, what you tolerate and what you accept as behavior. It's basically, how do you want people to act within your organization? And again, it's not what you talk about, because everyone has core values and mission statements, but they mean nothing. It's about what you tolerate. So in terms of, when I'm working with an athlete, I want my athletes to be mentally tough. And I can talk about mental toughness all I want, but if an athlete comes in, we're doing some training, and like we're outside getting ready for the games in August, and I'm like, so how you feeling? They're like, and if their response is, it's so damn hot, and you let that slide, you're not instilling mental toughness. That's your opportunity to call it out. They're focusing on something that's outside their control. That by definition is not mental toughness. What we need to do is bring awareness to that and call it out. And your job is just that, as a coach, is to call out the exceptions. When someone is not meeting the standards of excellence you've created, that's your job.
So it's to create the vision, and then it's to to call out any deviation from that.
So that all three of those things, between vision, accountability, and culture, there's a lot of overlap between all of them purposefully, right? So you can't have one, like if you have a vision, but you don't follow up on it or do anything about it, there's no principle. It's just a vision. It's a hope and it's a dream. It's a poster. I love that. Similarly, if you are going to create this culture, but you're not going to hold people to the standards, like what's that? What's that for?
Today's episode is brought to you by Noble. I sat down with co-founder Marcus Wilson to talk with him about some of the ways the brand is chasing excellence. There's sort of like an algorithm that I have in my head when I think about brands and companies that are successful. They tend to be built with the right people, working on the right idea, and working on it at the right time. Why is or was this team the right team? Why was this the right idea? And why is this the right time to be pursuing this idea?
All three of those things are super, super relevant for where we are right now. Noble is very much a team. We're building a team that we are super proud of. Everybody on the team is playing a really important and really critical role in what we're doing. The timing of it is super important. You think about just the explosion in social media, the role of athletes and the relationships that we have. When we launched in 2015, it was just ripe for all of those things. And then we came with an idea we think was refreshing to our customer base. Not believing in excuses and it just being up to you really is tapped into something powerful.
You're expanding incredibly fast. Your team is expanding very fast. How do you guys think about who the right people are? How do you make sure that you're getting the right people in the door so that together you're all moving in the right direction?
For us, it's really getting to know people, whether it's people that we're hiring, the athletes. We have an amazing small team of athletes, and we do that specifically because we want to build a relationship with them. And each one of them, it started with, hey, check out our product and let us know what you think. And then we spent a lot of time talking with them and getting to know them. Sam Dancer is a perfect example. We talked with Sam for ages, just getting to know him before we even started talking about a potential deal. And so we have a really great relationship with our athletes. And on the team, it's the same thing. From identifying potential candidates, interviewing multiple people on the team who are part of the interview process and who are very much empowered to give feedback. And we really want to make sure that people are the right fit.
How do you guys make sure that the culture that you're building doesn't suffer for that speed and for that velocity?
Yeah, first is just leading by example. We have what we call the Noble Code of Conduct. We have a weekly team meeting where we cover a different code in there. One is we trust you. Another is be bold or don't bother. We talk about the meaning of that, and we try to live that every single day ourselves.
As a leadership team, how do you guys think about embracing mistakes and making sure that the team here recognizes that mistakes aren't the end of the world, that they're learning opportunities? How do you make sure that that is felt
Again, it's part of the code of conduct, right? We're all gonna make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from them, we talk about them, and we move on. Part of that is, from the leadership team, owning our mistakes and not thinking that we're infallible, and that goes a long way. And I think people recognize that when people make mistakes, do not overreact. Because a lot of times people can feel that a mistake is going to end the world. There are not disasters in the business. FEMA deals with disasters and catastrophes. If a shoe doesn't ship on time, it's a problem. We need to look and make sure we understand it, but it is not a disaster. So it's keeping some perspective.
If you want to learn more about Noble, you can do so at nobleproject.com/chasing. One thing that I've heard you say before, and it might be the appropriate time to sort of dive into it, is the idea of like building a belief system, or sort of, and maybe another way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe another way to say that is like build a common language that you can use with the people who you're sort of leading, or with your team. So maybe talk to me a little bit about what that means, or that belief system, is, or how to build that.
Yeah, actually, before we, one of the things, just a specific to me for the culture thing.
Yeah.
I like talking it. We're talking this kind of higher level and philosophical. But one of the things that I think is really powerful, if I was to go into, it's one of the things. It's the first thing that I work with my athletes on a one-on-one. This is the culture. This is the environment that I'm trying to create. Same thing with my athletes on a whole when I'm working with the general population, and same thing when I'm managing my team. Is this environment where it's okay to make mistakes. I want you to work really hard. If you work really hard, we're going to be at the edges of our learning zone. And by definition, there's going to be mistakes, and create that environment where that's super valuable and important to me. And that sounds like, of course, like, okay, like, yeah, reward effort, not talent. We've talked about that before. Like it sounds, but what you see is these little tiny things. Let's say someone in your gym is in the early stages of learning how to do a handstand push-up, and they kick up on the wall and they have this horrific crash. It's really easy to just go like, ha, ha. The second you do that, you're creating an environment where it's not okay to make mistakes. You laughed at someone for trying. What you need to do is instead be like, that was phenomenal. I love that. Like, obviously, we want to keep people safe, but reward people for getting outside their comfort zones. If people try something and it does not work, awesome, phenomenal. Like, you got to create this environment, work so hard where it's about effort and not results or skills or what they're already coming to the table with. Make people feel good about stretching themselves.
What's really interesting about that too is sort of what you're talking about, that sort of that point is actually where and how you get into flow or into a flow state is right on the edge of boredom and anxiety, right? So if you want a team that's fully engaged, you need to make sure that they're at that edge, right? Where they're not trying things that they're just not ready to do, but also that they're not completely bored at. So to get not only to get growth, but also to get like fully engaged, they need to be at that place where they're just always teetering on the edge of things that they can't.
So again, the job of a coach, this is really important. It sounds like 101. The job of a coach is to make people better, to get each person under your
tutelage.
Love it. To reach their maximum full potential. You have to wring them of every ounce of potential you possibly can. If you are creating any sort of hesitancy for them to stretch themselves and try new things, you're really hindering their growth.
Yeah.
Okay. The second
belief system.
Belief system. Okay.
That was good though. I like that.
So here's my take on this is, I think it's really important for people to have a really strong self-identifying belief system about themselves, about the organization that they're a part of, and about the leadership that they're under. If they believe that those things are powerful and are going to take them where they want to go, it's more likely to do just that. But the opposite is also true, right? If they don't believe in themselves, if they don't believe in the program, if they don't believe in the organization or the leadership, the chances of them wringing out every ounce of possibility of potential that they can goes drastically down. It's like it's almost an impossibility, right? So kind of the way I would think about this is imagine like, you have a new athlete walking into the gym, and we're going to try and get them to reach their full potential. Well, you have your options of focusing on a few different things. You could focus on hope and belief. You could focus on the actions that they're taking. How many times a day are they coming into the gym? What program are they following? Are they following squat program? Are they doing bar class, spin, Pilates? You can focus on results. Are they losing weight and getting stronger? And let's just keep it to those three, right? Those are three really kind of powerful ones. What most people focus on of those three things, or let's put another one in. You can focus on their potential, right? Which is, when someone walks in, you size them up, right? It's a matter of like, ooh, this was a Division I. He's ripped. He's got so much. He's a go-getter. He's super fast and strong, right? So you have potential, you have action, you have results, and you have belief. Well, as a coach, there's a lot of sexiness, a lot you could pull out of the three of those boxes, right? It's really kind of like sexy to analyze the results people are getting and like, okay, let's try to figure out like the linear progression you're going on. Really, the biggest one is like, what's the program you're following on? Okay, which we should do is get you to do more gymnastics work or more cardio, or we need to get you stronger. Okay, from there it's like, okay, you just don't have the genetic potential to be able to go to the games, right? That's the thing. Like, you're just big boned. You're going to always be 20 pounds overweight. It's really easy to overlook the belief and the hope. But here's an analogy to drive that home. There were scientists at University of California, Berkeley, that did an experiment on hope and belief. And what they did was they took a couple dozen Norwegian field mice, and they put them through a swim test, which is essentially put these mice, these rodents, in a big, huge bathtub. And it's brutal. How long can they swim before they reach total exhaustion and drown? And now, these animal instincts, survival, none of these guys are like, today's just not my day. Like, I wish I hadn't had a donut for breakfast. I went out too late last night. Like, I'm going to save something for tomorrow. They're going to swim as long as they possibly can. They are going to swim and tread water till they are at their maximum, the fullest possible potential they possibly can. And what they found was these mice, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong because I haven't looked at this study in a really long time, but I believe that the mice could swim for about 3 hours. I think that Norwegian field mice have the capability to swim for 3 hours and they all drowned. They redid the study with the exact same mice from the exact same family, from the exact same place, all the same stuff. They redid it, except just before that 3 hour mark, they took the mice out for just a few moments and put them back in. What they did was gave the mice hope that if they hung on a little bit longer, they would be rescued and they'd be saved. They gave them this thing that there is something at the end. I can shoot for this. And what they found was Norwegian field mice can swim for a lot longer than 3 hours. They actually swam for about 7.5 hours, twice as long, with hope instilled. What we should be doing in the culture we're creating and with our coaching is creating a sense of hope for all of our athletes, that they can do this. If you do that, they'll stay with you twice as long. Now, if you're a CrossFit coach where you are coaching the best fitness program in the history of the world, nothing has ever delivered better results in terms of general physical preparedness. I'm not talking about max strength or running the mile. I'm talking about general physical preparedness and pushing off the nursing home and general health and wellness. You have the best tools at your disposal. It's the best program ever. If you could get someone to stay with you twice as long, think of the results you could deliver with them, regardless of their potential or anything else. So what we need to do is instill hope in those athletes. So what are the tactics that we do that? You make the early stages of learning very exciting, engaging, and rewarding, and you make people feel like they can be good at this. If someone starts off with you and you're going to teach them how to do a power clean, and you make it really complicated and you get frustrated as a coach, they're going to see like what the thoughts are going through their head is, this is really hard. I don't know if I can do this. But if you make it really simple and reward small little gains as you go, they're going to say to themselves, I can do this. And what you could even tell them is like, you can do this. You got a lot, you have a lot of potential. You're a quick, and the better thing is not necessarily potential because that's a fixed trait.
Yep.
What I would do is, my favorite one to say, my favorite feedback line always is, you're super coachable. All of a sudden they feel like, oh my gosh, I want to be coachable. Everyone wants to be coachable. And from that, how do you become more coachable? You listen more.
Right.
It's like, it's the best feedback loop ever. So after you give someone feedback, whether they make the tiniest little gains ever, improvement ever, or they make huge ones, it's like, wow, Patrick, you're super coachable, man. You're awesome to coach.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can do
the story that they tell themselves.
I'm
about.
coachable.
Yeah.
I'm
It's not
coachable.
I can or I can't do something. It's
I can learn this.
yeah, I can learn how.
It's the Tim Ferriss thing. Like, I think it's Tim Ferriss or Billy or whatever. It's like, tell yourself the story that you're the perpetual learner. Like, I am the learner. If you can instill that in someone and create that identity in someone, well, it's not about like what I walked in here with. It's no longer potential. It's no longer about the program. Is this right for me or not? It's no longer even about the results. It's I'm a learner and I can grow and develop. That's what everyone really wants. And that's our job as the coach.
So I think maybe now is a good time to maybe try to bridge into because we're sort of touching on it anyways, to bridge into the sort of the tactical stuff. One thing that you said a little bit earlier is sort of, and I love the line, so maybe remind me of it first, is that the idea of sort of establishing the standards and then not tolerating
it's not
deviation.
It's not about what you talk about, it's what you tolerate.
Right. Love that. So talk to me about the sort of the...
I love, just to kind of follow that saying, is a great quote. I'm going to credit Nick Saban. I don't know if he's the first person that said it, but it was, I can't hear what you're saying because your actions speak so loud.
Right.
It's like, it's not what you talk about, it's what you do.
Yep. So how do you I want to use the word pressure. How do you pressure somebody into sort of getting back in line in a way that they don't feel, called out or put on the spot?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get them when you see those small deviations or big deviations? Like, how do you get them sort of like, for some reason, the image in my head is just like the sheepdog when the one sheep, jumps out of the flock and they kind of gets them back in. Like, how do you do that as a coach? That's
such a cool analogy. I love that. So, I'm going to steal a philosophy, an approach from Danny Myers, who's the creator of Union Square Cafe and Gramercy Tavern and Madison, 11 Madison Park.
Did they do Shake Shack as well?
And Shake Shack, yeah. So a restaurateur who's done a phenomenal job of creating culture and success and phenomenal restaurants. Best of New York, 11 Madison Park got best in the world for restaurant. And his management style, leadership style, coaching style, it's all the same thing, is constant, gentle pressure. And those three words are really important and meaningful, and each one has to be there. It has to be constant, which means I'm always going to be there to nudge you back. I'm gonna if something goes out of the sheepdog, that's a great analogy. I've never heard that. Which is the sheepdog doesn't like, okay, today I'm not going to, right? It doesn't work that way. Like every day, every hour, every minute, I'm going to be scanning for things that look out of whack. And if they're out of whack, I'm going to be constantly bringing back in. Gentle. I'm not going to make you feel bad about this. It's not, the goal of the coach is not to make people feel bad. It should be very gentle. Don't let people lose their dignity in the process. You want to do just the opposite. You're trying to make people create the feedback loop of, I have your best interest at heart. And pressure, it's about standards. Like, this is what it's about. We're about getting better. So I'm going to uphold the standard.
How do you do that in the gym on a regular basis? Like, how do you actually go about applying that sort of pressure in a way that is consistent and constant is the word you used? What are and maybe this goes back a little bit to what you were talking about before, which is like you systematize some things within the gym. And maybe now is the time to sort of like get into the specifics of running a class or running a gym.
It depends on the athlete. So constant gentle pressure, you have to be able to, it's what I call the deeper side of coaching. You have to be able to, and this is what a level 4 coach will do, is they're not coaching the way that they feel like they should be coaching. They're coaching in the best way that's going to affect that athlete. So when you're coaching a class, you're coaching at this huge macro level, right? You're coaching to 10, 15, 30 people.
Yep.
But inside of that class, you for sure need to be able to go and micro in on that one athlete. And that one athlete might love to hear their name yelled across the room about keeping the bar closer in the snatch, right? They might love, he's paying attention to me. He yelled my name. Another coach, that might be their worst nightmare. They don't want feedback at all.
Mm-hmm.
The constant gentle pressure is really athlete dependent. So when I'm working with Katrin, for her, the more feedback, the better. Now, having said that, I err on the side of less is more. I feel like if I'm giving constant feedback, I become the train that's always going by your apartment that you end up not hearing anymore.
Right, yeah.
I would rather be the person that gives feedback when feedback is really warranted, and I'll triage things constantly in my mind. Is this one worth calling out? And I'm going to wait until I feel like it's the right one and the right moment for her to accept it and her to for us to move the needle going forward. I'm not going to call out everything I see because, as a coach and an entrepreneur, you see a ton. Yeah. You see everything. It's like Kelly Starrett says, it's like, I see broken people. Like once you like pull back the curtain, you're like, oh my gosh, I can see what human movement's supposed to look like. And I see how you're moving. Like every rep, there's 3 faults in every single movement. It's like, okay, so you have to kind of figure out which ones am I going to call out. There's a time and a place for like the relentlessness, right? I think it's really few and far between. Relentlessness is like, I'm going to you put your finger on a bug and you watch them squirm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the way to go. I think the constant, gentle pressure is the way to go. Just like drip, drip, drip. And like, just give the little bits constantly throughout the customer journey. You have these people, hopefully for a lifetime. I think the fastest way to lose somebody is to overcoach them, to not do constant gentle, but give a fire hose to the face. And the person's like now drowning and soaking wet and not having a good time.
Infrequent.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a great place, right? Yeah, imagine imagine the opposite. So it's not constant, it's infrequent. It's not gentle, it's harsh, or it's abrasive, or it's drenching, and it's not pressure. It's make them squirm, right? It's too much.
Yep.
So that's what we want to try and avoid all the time. And that's one of the reasons. Again, it goes back to our tactics: one coach, one class, because now I have them for a long period of time.
And if you don't know if that person wants to be called out across the room or whisper to.
Exactly. Yeah. So like some athletes want the whisper. Some athletes don't want to be coached at all. So the athletes that don't want to be coached at all, how do you coach those athletes? Because you need to coach them.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you got to be able to figure that out.
Instead of just crossing them off like, oh, they don't want me.
They don't want me. So
no,
okay.
It just makes you drop a little bit harder.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's for sure tactics and ways to do that.
Yeah. Okay. What about this constant gentle pressure? Individuals as well as the class. Where do the skill end of coaching, right? Or the coaching of skills, maybe is a better way to put it. Where does that fit into this conversation?
Well, it's not just about coach. It matters. It doesn't matter to me as much as coaching the person. Mm-hmm. So there's two kind of there's this thing called transactional coaching and transformational coaching, right? And transactional coaching is all about the skills. It's it's getting people to squat on their heels and drive their knees out, and how to do a hook grip and external rotation of the shoulders and all those things. It's the points of performance. It's the skills.
Yep.
Transformational coaching is improving a person. It's making them a better person. It's what's going to affect them outside the walls of the gym. Mm-hmm. So both of them matter. I think I think that you can have transactional coaching without transformational. But to me, if you're a transformational coach, the transactional is going to happen. Yeah. It's almost like it can't not, right? So for me, I focus first and foremost on transformational coaching. Coach the person, coach the character. Now, when you're coaching that, it's about the big picture. Yes, are they the picture of what you want them to embody? So we want to start with this kind of like macro level. Like, how does the person act that you want them to act like? You don't become a champion and then act like one. You act like a champion and then you become one. So what are the character traits that you feel are integral in a champion? Is it resiliency? Is it toughness? Is it humility? Is it coachability? Is it vulnerability? Is it dedication and discipline? Okay, now start to uphold those standards on a micro level. And the easiest way to do that is first, what are they doing in the gym? What kind of attention to detail are they doing? What are the exceptions, the violations of the standards? And the easiest one to pull out is what's their talk? How are they talking? If you can correct...
Assume out loud, right?
Out loud, yeah. If you can correct, and we talked about this already, it's cold outside. It's hot outside. Like, okay. When someone does that, that's a little bit outside our control. When I ask you, how's it going? I want you to focus on things that are inside your control. Tell me how you're feeling that are inside your control. I know it's hot. Guess what? It's hot for every single person out here. And you're not going to be able to change that. Now, could you have been more prepared? Could you have brought water and maybe sat near the fan during your rest period? Okay, that's something we can talk about. But now let's focus on things you have control and listen to people's talk. So to me, a big part of coaching is this macro and micro approach.
Right.
It's, yes, we want to coach the whole class, but then we got to go micro on that individual and spend time one-on-one with them and figure out what moves the needle for that individual. In terms of people in character, yes, it's about developing the characteristics of a champion, but it's micro. It's literally, what's their body language? Are they dropping their head between their sets? Are they shuffling their feet? Are they have slumped shoulders? Or is their head up, shoulders back, making eye contact with everybody? Mm-hmm. What's their talk? Their talk leads to their self-talk. Their self-talk leads to their actions. Their actions are going to dictate their performance. So go micro on that as well. To get back to your original question, the skill set. So skills. In terms of that, the movements matter for sure. You want to be able to get your athletes to get 5 unbroken muscle ups. You want to be able to snatch their body weight. You want to be able to walk on their hands. You want to be able to get them a sub 3-minute Fran. That's great. Those are the macro things, right? Or even more macro would be like, you want them to be healthy. You want them to lose weight. You want them to get off of their medication, whatever it is. That's the macro side of what we're trying to create in terms of skills, But then from there, it's the micro side of things. Okay, if we're trying to get someone better at a skill, we want to be able to get double unders. Okay, now we figure out what's the limiting factor. Is it fitness? Is it their engine? Is it their timing or their technique? And you figure out from there, okay, it's not their engine. They can run a 6-minute mile. So it's not they're not fit enough to do double unders. Okay, it's probably more their timing, their technique. Okay, is it their lower body or is it their upper body? Okay, it's their lower body. Okay, is it because they're piking at the hips? Is it because they're bending, tuck jumping at the knees, or donkey kicking behind them? Okay, let's figure out some ways that we can correct that. Whether it's, and this gets into like, okay, now we figure out the right way to cue the athlete. And for me, there's 3 different ways you can cue an athlete, which is visual, verbal, or tactile. Do you tell them? Do you show them? Do you touch them? And for me, I always think you don't know, and maybe you know because you've been with the athlete long enough. But first, 2 things. What you're most comfortable with matters a lot because the one you're most comfortable with is the one that will be presented the best, but it's also what they receive best. People are either visual, tactile, or verbal learners. So for me, the best way to do that is do all 3 at once. Tell them, move them, and show them all together. So, it's like if we want to go external rotation, it's like with the shoulders, it's like, okay, Patrick, what I want you to do is be able to externally rotate your shoulders. This is internal. This is external rotation. It looks and feels like this. Yep. Okay. And I've told you, I've shown you, and I've moved you. It just kind of like, why not give them all 3? Right. If you can do that really quickly, we call this the GPS technique. If you can do this in the way your GPS would talk to you. What most coaches like to do is like they get armed with all this knowledge and all this, and they like to have this big, long explanation. So we want to externally rotate the shoulders because if we do that, we're setting up just those 4 little stabilizer muscles in the shoulder, the sit muscles. What we want to do is get those things to have the best possible activation, get the bigger players involved. And if we internally rotate our shoulders, we're really going to put a lot of stress on, I don't need to go the whole thing. Instead, it's like really a GPS. It's direct, short, and actionable. It is telling you what to do, externally rotate your shoulders. It's telling you in a very short, as few words as possible. It's not telling you what not to do. What a lot of people do is like, okay, when you're squatting there, you're coming up on your toes. Don't come up on your toes.
Right.
Okay, you haven't told me anything to do yet.
Yeah.
Okay, you're squatting, your knees are caving in. We don't want your knees to cave in. Okay, you've yet to tell me what to do. Your GPS doesn't go, don't turn left, don't turn left, don't turn left. It just tells you one thing to do. We want to make that as poignant and as short and powerful as possible. Weight on your heels. That's squat with your knees out. That's everything. If you do that with a verbal, tactile, and visual cue, you're doing pretty solid.
Two things. One is just a little aside, that what you're talking about with the transformational and the transactional coaching. There's a really good book. I don't know if you've read it. I don't remember who wrote it, but it's called The Coaching Habit. And it talks about
Wow,
that.
I have not read it.
It's really good, short book. The second thing is maybe the thing that what popped into my head when you're talking about the sort of the cues is, I think it was Morgan here at one of your coaches meetings, and you've done it a couple times where in the coaches meeting, sort of it's a challenge or a game that you guys play where Morgan will, who's one of your coaches here, will whisper into the ear of another one of the coaches who's acting as the athlete and say, only respond to verbal cues, right?
Right.
And then, okay, Ben, it's your turn, and you're given, and the athlete's given, is moving poorly in some way, and your job, in the game is to figure out the right way to cue that individual.
Yes.
In a way that, obviously it's artificial, but in a way that they theoretically respond to.
So that's actually, that exercise is how I found this shortcut.
Awesome.
So so what people would do in this game, and what we'd do in that game, and it's on the computer, we'd play this like Wheel of Fortune type thing. You hit the space bar and this wheel spins and it lands on sumo deadlift high pull, or it will land on overhead squat, or it'll land on push press. And then that athlete does the push press with a fault that we've predetermined.
Yep.
But the coach doesn't know what it is. The coach has to identify it and then cue it.
Right.
And the game was who can fix people the fastest.
Right.
So what people would do is they would go, okay, here's the visual one. And they would say,
and they just cycle through.
And they cycle through it. And what I figured out was I would just do all three at once. It was like
That's the hack.
3 second. Yeah, it's a hack. It's a 3 second fix.
Yeah.
Well, it's not for the game. That's real life.
Yeah.
You're hacking it. Like, why would we not just use that in real life? Just give people all three at once.
And the interesting thing about that is that doing that and getting good at that is what allows you to do that 30 times in the class with 30 different athletes.
Yeah.
Because the thing you were talking about with like the externally rotated shoulders, you can do that once. It's going to take you 2 minutes. You can't do that to everybody.
Exactly.
You can't hit everybody. You can't do that micro while you're also doing the macro. So it's sort of like, it's just another tactic in order to be able to do that.
Yeah,
like
exactly. That. So one thing again with that micro macro is we talked about like, I don't want it to look like, I don't want people to have this vision of a funnel, right? Which is we start macro and then we go really down. It should be more like a seesaw or like a game of tennis where you're going macro, micro, macro, micro. If you're coaching a class, it's not about like coach the whole class and then start to work with individual athletes. You got to come back to the whole class again. And you go to another athlete, you coach the whole class again and back to another athlete. If you can do that well, if you're a seasoned coach, the class doesn't even know you're doing it. Everybody feels like you're micro constantly on them and that you're constantly macro and everyone is on flow and moving the way that they're supposed to. Same thing with like the character development stuff, right? It's not like, okay, this is what we want a champion to look like. Now I'm just going to listen to what you talk about.
Right.
It's like, you come back to it. And what do I want a champion to look like? Are you filling that bill? And now it's kind of like always back and forth.
Okay. So the last thing, and it'll be the last thing because my computer's going to die soon. So I don't want to lose it. Is something that I've heard. And then the lights just crashed down.
Now people know we have a light. People didn't know we had a light.
God, and the camera fell. This is so embarrassing. If you're watching.
This is the,
I'm not even gonna worry about the light because it's only gonna be a couple minutes. So it's something people listening are like, "What the hell are they talking about?" Something that I've heard that I heard you say. I haven't heard it before, and I really liked it, which is because it's sort of a take on something I had heard, which is that programming is the science and adjustments are the art. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Because we've heard before, like programming is the science.
Science is in the programming. The art is in the adjustments.
I'm going to fix the light while
you talk. Please. So the kind of idea behind that is there's all sorts of, the program matters for sure. Like if you're trying to get in shape, well, I can feel pretty confident that doing CrossFit is going to help you along that path better than doing like bar class. Like I just feel really confident about that.
Yep.
So that's the program, right? And then from there we dial in the CrossFit program. Like, okay, you want to compete, so let's figure out your strengths and weaknesses. We analyze your strengths and weaknesses. Okay, inside of your strength and weakness, is it about is it a neurological adaptation, abnormality, or is it a deficiency in did I say organic? And then neurological, those are the two sides. Yep. So I don't know which I said first. And from there, we figure out the best training program to go through that. That's the science, like, right? That's the science. But the art is in the adjustments. There is no one best program for everybody, period. Yep. Just like there is no one best nutrition program for everybody. That's why if you're searching for it, it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. We are all individual snowflakes. And the way you respond to a training program is going to be very different than the way I respond to one. You could take two twins, and they've done this, bring them with the exact same upbringing and with the same DNA, same opportunities, same communication. They're going to respond to things in very different ways. What you need to do is be able to adjust things on the fly, be able to adjust it appropriately. And to me, the best way to do that is just with the feedback loop of coach, athlete. And it comes back to the relationship. If you are coaching people from afar, it's not going to be as optimal as you're coaching people really close. If you see people once a week, it's not going to be as optimal if you see people 6 times a week. If you see people for an hour a day, it's not going to be as optimal as you see people for 3 hours a day. It's just like the stronger the relationship, the more I understand the motives and the triggers and the buttons that move Patrick forward, the better I can do of adjusting things. Mm-hmm. Everything from your body language to the way that you recover, to the way you talk, to the way that you move, to, everything is a feedback loop that I'm trying to then adjust things appropriately. So that's where the art comes in. That's where, coaching is equal part art and science, because you can't have just art without a great program. Right. You need the program as the foundation. It's kind of like building a house. Like, you need the foundation, you need the frame. And if you're going to, are you building a 5,000 square foot house or a 8,000 square foot house? Is it going to be 3 stories, or is it going to be a ranch? Is it going to be, you need that matters a lot. But then everything else, everything inside is art. Right. That's interior design. Mm-hmm. And both of those make up the house.
Let us leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you once again to today's sponsor, Noble. Visit nobleproject.com/chasing to sign up for early access to new products. You can get every episode of Chasing Excellence wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Until next time, thank you for listening.